fan art to my own illustrations to portraiture, and of course to my cats. You can probably see Ripley here. She really loves whenever I'm on a video chat. So she'll be joining us today. Oh, she got embarrassed. That's why she left. I get it. So I also do comics as well. I like most of the comics that I like to do are silly comics. I like comics that talk about regular, everyday, goofy things, but I also like to educate as well. So I've done comics on the importance of voting and making it an actual event so that you have fun when you go out and do it. But I also like scary stuff. I like horror as well. I like doing character reimaginations. So, I like to do all the things that make me happy. Oh my goodness, Ripley, what did you do? All right. I like to do all the things that make me happy because when I'm doing the stuff that I love, it's going to show in the artwork. And that's what art directors and editors like myself are always looking for, is that love of the art. So I first got started by doing little comics here and there. But my first big graphic novel is Archival Quality, which came out in 2018 from Oni Press. And since then, I've been doing smaller comics in anthologies like Deadbeats and Elements Fire. I've done illustrations for different D&D homebrew campaigns. I've even done a little Encyclopedia Brown comic because I've always been a fan of Encyclopedia Brown. So I wanted to make a little comic with that. But the only difference is my encyclopedia is a Black girl. Everything else is exactly the same, down to how they speak. And it's one of my favorite things about Encyclopedia Brown. It's so very 60s. But I also like doing comics about, all the little things that happen in life. There was a point where my husband and I got the wrong brand of toothpaste and it ruined our entire week. And we felt like it was such a silly thing to have an issue with. But when your routine is messed up, it's definitely a lot. So I like to make sure that I do those kinds of comics as well. And I don't really put too much effort in the drawing ability as much as the storytelling ability, because everyone's going to have their own different taste. I have my own taste as well, but as long as the story is getting out there, that's what matters. And what I'm working on currently is a graphic novel called Side Quest. It is a graphic novel history of tabletop role-playing games. So if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, Starfinder, that sort of thing, there's a history to that. Where did that all come from? So me and my creative partner, we will take you on a journey through space and time to show you all the things that led up to tabletop role-playing games today. So these are a few pages of the pencils that I have. So don't show anyone. It is not yet out. I'm still working on it, but I like to show it off just so people can see, the kinds of things that I'm currently working on. And then my main job, I am the cartoonist on the syndicated comic strip Heart of the City. It is a comic that had been going on for about 20 years. And when the artist decided that he did not want to do the comic anymore, he had already sold it to Andrews McMeel. And so Andrews McMeel reached out to me and decided, do you want to take over on this comic and redesign it for a new audience? And so I started that gig in 2020 and have been doing that. And I plan to do that for maybe the next 20 years, like the last artist, who knows? The first collection of Heart of the City is going to be coming out May 2022. So please buy it. It's really great. Or if not, you can always read it for free on gocomics.com or in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. It is a syndicated comic strip, so you can really read it anywhere. But getting the book will be great because I really would like to get some royalties. So help me out. I also edit. I've been editing since about 2017. I've edited magazines as well as superhero comics, adaptations, adapting comics from online to published comics as well. I work with smaller publishers as well, including Tapas, and I work with individual creators on their pitches for their books as well. So if you need help putting together a pitch for your comic book, I'm the one that will help you with that. And then my latest things that you can see on the shelves, Bountiful Garden is a spooky horror sci-fi that I edited, and the collection comes out pretty soon. I don't remember the actual date, but all the single issues are out and available. I suggest going to your local comic store like Wizard Wagon and seeing if they have copies available still. Did I get through it all? I got through it all. Yay. Okay. So yeah, that's me. I'm Steenz.
Awesome. Thank you, Steenz. Thank you for joining us. Okay, well, next, and as far as my view, is Lauren. Oh, you're muted, Lauren.
Oh gosh. Okay, let's do it again. Hi, everyone. I am Lauren Younge. I am an abstract painter. My style, I am always incorporating lots of bright colors in my work. I'm sitting by a piece here, but I promise I will share my screen in just a minute. But my style incorporates lots of bright colors, movement, sometimes texture, and patterns always. I've always been drawn to abstract work. I find comfort in the freedom that working abstractly allows me to do. Like I'm in control. I feel like I'm in control. I can decide myself when I think a piece is done. I'm choosing what subject matter. I use that loosely. I'll get into what inspires me in a second. But I just find comfort in that. I'm all about a stress-free process. I like to describe my creative process as a vibe session. I vibe out and cool things happen. I'm never really sitting down and I'm never really planning anything aside from like a color palette before I sit down to have a paint session. I can share my screen. Let's see. And I'll ask for a thumbs up too if you guys can see it. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to try to do what Steenz did, speak and like move my slides forward. But so this piece is titled Garden Glory. This was one of my commissions from last year. This is the biggest piece I've worked on in a very long time. This is 5 feet by 4 foot. This was a commission for Rung for Women, which is a local nonprofit here in St. Louis. I would say I've been creating for a while. I've always considered myself a creative person. Say near the end of high school is where I really decided, wow, I want to be a painter. I want to pursue this. Like, how can I make this become like an actual thing for me, being an artist? And so that passion kind of continued through undergrad. In undergrad, I majored in art education, which was a way for me to kind of combine both of my passions at the time, working with kids and creating, which are still, of course, passions I have to this day. But so flash forward a few years, I did have painter's block, and I kind of struggled with, I kind of considered my art to be in a hobby phase, and I wasn't really sure how to push past that, like to consider myself a professional artist. So flash forward to when COVID hit us in 2020, that's when I really started considering myself a professional artist. Had a new website launch. I was trying to show work, getting my work in stores here in the area. And so, yeah, so I've been moving forward with that. So I can say I've been seriously pursuing my art professionally I'm coming up on like my 2nd year anniversary. So I'm pretty excited about that. But so with Garden Glory, you can totally see what I was saying about my style, where it's lots of color, lots of movement. That is always a consistent thing for me. I guess I haven't said yet what inspires me. With working with the stress-free process, I'm inspired by just my day, by my mood, by my thoughts, by maybe the music that I'm listening to. I used to journal when I first started painting. Like I would journal and paint. I would sometimes even like incorporate my journal pages in my work, but my style has shifted since then. It's kind of evolved since then. And so I swapped out my journal pages for canvases. And so when you're looking at my work, you're seeing literally like what I was thinking about while painting. And here, let's see, there's one more. This is kind of a super tiny peek of my studio, but I do typically I'm always working on stretch canvas. Right now, I mainly work with acrylics. Sometimes you'll see inks in my work, and I've been playing around a lot lately with paint markers with my work. But so just a glance. And I'm normally working on more than one piece at a time. That's also a part of that stress-free process. I am a cover-up queen. Like if I'm not feeling a painting, I will cover it up in a heartbeat. And so that can be problematic if I'm like working on a deadline, or, you know, like I have a show, or this is a piece for a client. That's an issue. So working on more than one piece helps me. It might seem kind of crazy to some people, but for me, it's comforting because I can put that one piece to the side and work on something else. So this is a series that I made for an art fair that I was a part of this past summer. And then I believe I just have one more. This is one of my favorite pieces. That first piece, like I said, is the largest piece I've worked on since like my little painting hiatus. So I love working really large. I just don't always get the opportunity to do that. But so yeah, this is called All Things, and there is some ink kind of at the top of the screen if you can see that. And so yeah, I sell my work online. I do commissions when that occurs, and I have work for sale in a few local places here. Oh, I have to figure out how to stop sharing my screen. Sorry, guys. If I X out, will that? Okay.
Thank you, Lauren. That was great. All right. So next is Charlie.
Hi, everybody. As she said, my name is Charlie Tatum. So I consider myself both, an Atlanta and, St. Louis native, being born here, raised there. But definitely growing up in the South gave me like a completely different appreciation for like all the facets of Black culture that I really carry with me everywhere I go. So me personally, I've led projects in virtual media creation, visual arts, exhibition building, and digital content design. I really have a strong calling for community work as well. I'm currently a United Way brand ambassador for their current Helping Here campaign, which specifically focuses on different needs here in the St. Louis area. I also coordinate for a local arts nonprofit called the St. Louis Shakespeare Festival, if you guys are familiar with that. And since returning here to St. Louis in 2018, I've helped to found an organization called Painted Black. And what Painted Black does, it is dedicated to collecting local Black artists and connecting them to commission opportunities kind of throughout the city. So so far I've worked with the Arts and Education Council, Commerce Bank, the Central West End Association, the Shakespeare Festival, pre me working with them, as well as Sports Park Forever, Miristar, the Kreensburg Arts Foundation. And we were actually selected as the 2022 Arts and Education Council Arts Innovator awardees this year. So looking forward to that ceremony coming up. Although I don't have visuals to show you now, I'm hoping that you can check out Painted Black STL on Instagram and kind of see some of the projects we've been involved with recently.
Awesome. Thank you, Charlie. All right. Next, we have Tiff Sutton.
Hey guys, how's it going? Some amazing artists that I'm sharing the panel with. I have to grab a lot of you or all of you for teaching positions at the St. Louis Artists Guild. So that's my main job. I am Tiff J. Tiff, and I am trying to share my screen. That is not what I want to show you. It's okay. Here we go. Too many things. Can everyone see? Oops, that's the wrong thing. Here we go. I'll just chalk it up to being old. Can we all see? So I am a photographer. I've been creating with the camera since I was 15, and I'm 41 now. I just turned 41, so yay. Excuse me. I have been working with film ever since I was 15, although sometimes I do digital. In 2020, I lost, as many of us did, lost my primary job. I was collecting I wasn't collecting unemployment yet, but I was receiving grant money. So I used that grant money to pay it forward and pay my Black models, my Black women models. It was about $50. I still continue to pay them. I pay my models because, not just because I can, because sometimes I really can't, but I pay them because I want people to value model work. And I feel like the only way you can value a model is to pay them for their time and energy. So these are just some of the latest series that I have. It's called Black Landscape. I'll just go through a few. And the landscape is kind of taking place to an actual landscape, a cityscape where we are in the landscape of your house or your emotional landscape as well. These are all multiple or double exposures, and that's created in camera by a process where instead of, if you understand film, like a film camera, instead of advancing to the next shot, I keep on the same frame, negative frame, and then I just shoot more and more on that as many times as I feel like it. So it just kind of feels, maybe 2, sometimes 3, just kind of feel, I feel around for it. So I don't really have too much of a plan for it. Although at first I didn't, now I do. So now I plan, I'm gonna shoot a picture vertical, then I'm going to change orientation to horizontal. And this is my wonderful mother, who you'll see often. I photograph her to her great annoyance, as this picture kind of illustrates, but that's okay, because she has to do it anyway. And so yeah, so I don't pay her either. So that's, she's the only model that it's free. Which is kind of sad now that I think about it, actually. But anyway, so yeah, so I've just been photographing Black women, paying them, and I've had some recent success. So I'm going to Iceland this June for a month-long residency. And while there, I'll be photographing more Black women in the landscape of Iceland. I'm hoping to get some volcano shots and some by some beaches and maybe the Blue Lagoon and whatnot. So really excited that is happening. I also was the first recipient of the Black Women Photographers and Nikon Grant Award of $10,000. And even more shockingly, I was on NPR. So, all right, me. It's the year of Tiffany. Capricorn season was good. I'll just say that. My Capricorn season was really good. So yeah, so how I find models is I'll put out a call on Instagram, and whoever just kind of reaches out to me, I'll go to meet them and we'll photograph. It was interesting the first time for early COVID days during the pandemic. I would go into houses, but I would be really far apart from them and I would wear my mask. It was an awkward situation to take photographs, and I'm just pleased that I was able to get so much sincerity from the model, which I think I have. There's my mom again. I guarantee you she's telling me to stop photographing her. And so I've been going around to different parks in St. Louis, Lafayette, Forest Park, Tower Grove, photographing whoever, I meet a model there and whatnot. In houses and apartments, outside of tents, front yard farm, and that's all.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, we have Brock Seals.
Thank you. First of all, everybody who went before me is like super dope. I'm so inspired. Some of y'all work I'm familiar with and some I'm not, but I'm You definitely got a new fan over here, so definitely. Now let me share my screen. Okay, here we go. One second. Got a lot. Well, in the meantime, while I get this ready, my name is Brock Seals. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I paint, I do music, and I design clothes as well. So, can you all see? You good? Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm Brock Seals, born and raised in St. Louis. I've been doing art for about 8 to 10 years now. I started doing music when I was like really young, and that's what kind of started my creativity, I believe. And from there, I ventured off into like making clothes. I had a clothing line in high school with some of my homies, and it wasn't until like my second year in college is when I like decided I wanted to do art. I always had like creative ideas, but I never really knew how to necessarily like paint or draw really good. So I was like, why not? Let me just try it out. It always seemed like a cool thing. So I started doing art at Florissant Valley. I got my associates there. Then I went on to UMSU, graduated and got my BA in art as well, in painting and drawing. So yeah, my work is it's abstract. I call myself an expressionist because it's full of movement, full of color. It's like an emotion. So I'm inspired by my culture, pop culture, being Black in St. Louis. A lot of the things that inspired me while I was growing up, like the music I listened to, my family, just things that interested me, and I kind of like tie those into my work nowadays. So like I say, I love St. Louis, so a lot of my work is inspired by the city, famous people from the city. See here, we got Chuck Berry, Blueberry Hill. I did that in like 2017, I believe. This is the cover for my latest album that I just dropped called The Artivist. And that's a term that I kind of been going by lately. It's because I felt like I am using my art as my voice to make change. So it's kind of activist and art mixed together. So we got The Artivist. That's me. This is a street mural that I was a part of. It was in front of City Hall, reparations. And I have another one here. This was right before the primaries. This was Vote Equals Voice. Your vote equals your voice. This is a canvas painting that I did. I'm always doing shoes, a bunch of shoes all the time. So I do themes. This was, of course, Easter. I try to keep up with the holidays, but everything like comes so quick. So I'm like trying to make something a couple of days before the holiday. So that's I did that for Easter last year. This is St. Louis. Every 314 day, I do a St. Louis inspired piece. So this one is definitely a lot of St. Louis going on. So if you're from the city, you can understand the lingo, the food and all that. More shoes, Rugrats, childhood favorite. Again, me incorporating my childhood into, things that I like to do now. This is a St. Louis Blues inspired pair of forces I did. Again, just nostalgia. All the cartoons that I used to watch growing up. This piece is entitled Black Boy Joy. So this is a lot of the cartoons I watched growing up. Even when I got older, still to this day, I watch some of them. So that's one for me. This is a hat that I designed last year. It was for African American Heritage Day at the St. Louis Cardinals Stadium. So it was pretty dope. Super huge experience for me. I got to throw out the first pitch at the game. And if you bought a theme ticket to the game, you received this hat for free. So that was super dope. This is a mural I did at a business. It's entitled Rose from Concrete. I did this last year. And this is a piece that I did at my high school. I graduated from Jennings 2011. So this is a piece like right in the commons area, right in the cafeteria, just about, students graduating. And what's special about it is that I was able to like write all the names of my classmates who passed away, from that class who graduated with me. So I kind of, got them in there forever. More shoes. If you follow me on Instagram, you will see a lot of shoes that I painted and a lot of art, period. My Instagram is Seals Brock, all one word. In addition to shoes, I paint a lot of cleats for like athletes. So this pair was for Denzel Ward. He plays for the Cleveland Browns. He wore these in the game. This was for his foundation, Make Them Know Your Name, which was dedicated to his father, who lost his life due to a heart condition. So this was for the My Cause, My Cleats edition of the NFL. Again, this is me painting on all types of canvases. Like I say, I do clothing, shoes, and pretty much anything I get my hands on. This was on like a vintage luggage piece. So I thought that turned out really dope. This is a canvas piece. This is kind of like where my style kind of originated. I just did this piece this year. So it's taking some elements that I used to love back in the day and mixing them with new concepts that I'm feeling right now. This is another piece. I did this, I believe this year for the American Cancer Society. They had a gala just recently, and this was made for like a little entry piece that people could see. This is another piece. I got my work digitally done because, you know, everything is digital these days. So I've been venturing into that, you know, trying to make like clothing and different, you know, different pieces that I can just make. Here's another piece that I did recently. This is right now. This is on display at Coca. I got a solo exhibit entitled The Artivist. And actually the opening for that exhibit is, oh, did y'all lose me?
No, I can still see your screen.
Okay, cool. All right, yeah. So Coca, this Friday from 6 to 8, that's the opening exhibit for that show. This is another piece that's a part of that. More from that exhibit. This is, you know, St. Louis inspired. So that's pretty much all of my work, and happy to be here again.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I also love seeing Arthur as part of your Black Boy Joy.
Oh yeah, we claim.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for being here. So without further ado, we'll start our discussion. So our first question that we have tonight for our panelists. Most studies show that surroundings are a huge influence on our taste in music and art. Do you agree with that? How much does your background influence your work? Do you feel a sense of obligation to make art that is Black or for Black audiences? Why or why not?
All right. You want me to go first? I can go first. I'll go first. So whenever I think about my influences, I just think about what I grew up with, because I grew up in Detroit and then I moved here to St. Louis when I was 11. So I kind of like feel like I have both in my mind of where I grew up. But I think less about the city and more about my family. We were just a very close knit family, and like all the kinds of things that we did together are what I consider part of my influences. Like every night at like 5 o'clock, me and my sister would watch Sailor Moon, and then 6 o'clock came around, dinner was ready, and we all sat in front of the TV to watch Dragon Ball Z together. Like, and then we have dinner and watch Justice League. So, you know, the idea that we can be interested in whatever we want to be interested in had always been something that I had grown up with. So I consider that my biggest inspiration, is really accepting and getting as deep into something that you enjoy, no matter what other people tell you you should be enjoying. You know, like I listen to a lot of sad core indie music, which like, listen, I like to cry when I listen to music, no big deal. And, you know, when you're growing up and you tell people, you know, you like Death Cab for Cutie, they're just like, who? What? You trying to be white? And it's like, white people could never. But also, this is what I'm interested in. I really want to like feel like I'm okay to be interested in whatever I want to be interested in. And that's kind of how I want to push my work forward, is I want people to read my work and think, oh my gosh, you know, they also like watching old episodes of JAG, and now I need to talk about the kind of things that I like. You know, that sort of thing is an inspiration in itself. That was the first half of the question. I don't remember the second half of the question.
Do you feel a sense of obligation to make art that is Black
Yeah,
or
okay.
quote unquote Black or for Black audiences?
Gotcha. Obligation, unfortunately, yes. I say unfortunately because I do feel that a lot of the time that is pushed on me without me feeling like it comes from myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between wanting to create like a Black character because it's missing, and like doing a comic about the struggles of being Black. There's like two completely different things, you know? So it's like, I think it's important to put in whatever you want to put in. And if that means better visibility and newer characters that need to be created, like for example, with Heart of the City, the syndicated comic strip, Heart lives in Philadelphia, which is 40% Black, and she had no friends of color. And I was like, that's unrealistic. So I immediately created a Black character. And that's something that comes from my background is, where am I? Let me put myself into this. And rather than, we want you to do a story about X, Y, and Z because you're Black. You know, it's like a slight difference. So I just like to make sure that people know that when they look at my work, it's work that I want to make fully 100%, not because someone says I should be making it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm old now too, because I saw Death Cab for Cutie when they were at the, what was it called? The grunge or the trophy room or something.
Oh my God.
It was so long ago. They were there with this dismemberment plan. And
Oh
I
my
was
God.
totally into this music that none of my friends liked. And I felt disconnected from a lot of Black women at that time because I was the only Black woman other than family in my life. Because musically and maybe film-wise or what I liked, not even culturally, wasn't hitting with other Black women, at least the ones that I could find in North County. So I did end up having a lot of white friends. I think I make art that features Black women for two reasons. One, I want to show value in myself. So people who look like me, I have to show value with them as well. And that's mostly a self-esteem, kind of self-care kind of thing that I feel is happening. And then also I want to see more Black figures in the art world. Like, I'm hoping that my work will be at an art museum one day, and Black children who come and white children who come and everyone who comes by and maybe sees my work, they can go, well, that person was a Black photographer, Black woman photographer, and she photographed Black women for this reason. And I really find that inspiring. So it was just something I had never seen when I was little, when I was young and getting into photography. I mean, the only one I knew at that time was Carrie Mae Weems. And when I got older, I discovered Ming Smith and Carrie Mae Weems and Ming Smith and Renee Cox and all the LaToya Ruby Fraser. And I had no idea that those people existed until after I got into college. And I just kind of think that's wrong. We need to be out here a little bit more. And that's, I guess, maybe more of a media thing than anything.
We have about 4 more minutes on this question.
I'm going to agree with them both. That yes, definitely, you know, your surroundings can, you know, inspire what you're creating, just because inspiration often happens through observation. So in my experience in, you know, performance art and visual arts, just growing up, it didn't include as many Black and brown faces when it came to, you know, both my peers and leadership in that area, despite me being, you know, in Atlanta, you know? So because of this, I feel both like compelled to create and compelled to create as a Black artist, and then on a standout level also, because regardless of whatever audience is observing, like I will be, you know, seen and heard. There's this, you know, need to want to represent in that area. So whether I'm, you know, literally like painting depictions of, you know, brown faces, or, you know, just drawing abstract lilies, it's still Black art. whatever I am present in is going to be Black art. And I feel like I'm in a, position and a platform to be recognized as that type of creative, when the door, can't be found for a lot of others. So yeah, definitely Black artists first.
I love that you said that, Charlie, because I was actually trying to figure out how to say that. And so what you just said, whether it's a actual brown bodies in the work or the artist is just brown, those are both important. That's both still Black art. That's something that I have to remind myself sometimes, because when if you were to look at my art, you don't know that I am a Black artist. So like you said, Tiff, one day, yes, I'm hoping to have my work in a museum, and it's equally amazing whether it's very clear that it's a Black artist or not, when little brown children are coming to look at the work. So I'm glad you said that, Charlie. That was nice.
Any other thoughts? We have about 2 more minutes on this question. If not, we can move on to the next one. Okay. So for our next question, we're kind of expanding on this idea of your background influencing your work. So there was something that I read, it was an opinion that said that because you have seen other paintings, read other poems, listened to other music, there's no such thing as original art, right? You're influenced by everything around you. Do you agree with that? Do you believe that there's no such thing as original work? Or do you feel like your perspective is original and unique to you, and that makes your work original?
I think I can answer. I'll answer that one. That is kind of funny that that someone would say something like that, because I guess it technically is kind of true. And I mean, it's kind of true in music because people sample other music, or you may repeat song titles, but then that's when it gets kind of too technical. I feel like if it's still relatable to who you're trying to put it out to, if it's not just a complete ripoff of something that you've seen, then I feel like it's unique. I mean, nothing is technically the same because everybody paints different, people draw different, illustrate different. It's your experience, it could mean something totally different. Like I can have a blue painting and Lauren can have a blue painting, but they could be two different experiences, two different meanings. So I feel like if it's true to you and who you are, then it's original. I don't feel like anybody can argue you out of your opinion or what you put out. So yeah.
Additionally, sometimes you may have your fingerprint on something and not really recognize it, I could write a sweet note that says, hey, your hair looks great. And then I could write the same note trying to mimic someone else's handwriting. Hey, your hair looks great. And guess what? It's still going to be my work because it still looks like my hand did it, Mm-hmm. So I think what makes it original is the fact that there is no other you. Unless I didn't get to talk about multiple universes and stuff. But for the most part, what we know is you're the only one of you. So your art is the only one of it.
Let's make a case for copying. I know that sounds kind of funny too, but I don't know where I got this information. It could be from a Shakespeare movie about Shakespeare. Maybe Charlie can field this one too, but didn't he do all of the genres as 23 plays that and different subject matters you can have in life? And ever since Shakespeare, people have just been doing variations of the same thing. And it is that, like you both say before, it is the same thing, but it's different because you put your handprint on it. But also, why not copy? I mean, art is best when it's stolen from someone else. And it's, whatever, bring some more influences out here and everything like that. Make the David, but make it a Black body or something. It's, or paint the Mona Lisa, but make it your mom. I mean, that's kind of what I've been doing with all of my work as well. I don't mind copying off of someone. I used to think that was the worst of what an artist could do. And now I'm all for it. I'm like, let's copy, let me see what you did and let me put my spin on it. let me try to copy it directly, but it'll never look the same anyway. It'll always look like my original work, even though I could do the same thing and create the same stuff. I mean, I'm not an abstract painter, but if I were to copy yours, Lauren, like it would still like, we would be different. It'll be different, but I would try to make it look just like yours, but there'd be something that would be different about it. And that's just how we all are. But yay, copying.
It kind of reminds me of the documentary, I think it's called Art and Craft. It's about a guy who just for hobby copies masterworks, and also for hobby sells them to museums. So that's where the fraud part comes in. But the people who made the documentary actually set up a gallery for him of all of his copied works. And so many people came to the show and they were just like, you're so good at this technique. Why are you copying work that's already done and selling it? But also, why don't you just create something that's fully originally yours? And he was like, well, it is originally mine because I did it, you know? And so I don't support fraud. I do support, you know, studying a masterwork if you want, you know? How else are you supposed to learn? How else are you supposed to have that muscle memory? How else are you supposed to experiment if you don't look at someone else's work and say, I need to try that, you know?
Yeah, I agree completely.
Any other thoughts? We have about 5 minutes on this question.
I just want to add to that and say originality like will always continue to exist as long as we all have our, you know, own unique perspectives. So even if you are, you know, just creating something from, you know, the depths of your imagination, none of that is going to look like what someone else, you know, dug up from theirs.
Any other thoughts? Okay, we'll move on to our third question here. So in a 2019 study, it found that diversity in major American museums has a long way to go. According to the study, on average, 85% of artists are white, while 87% are male. Sadly, the Nelson Atkins Art Museum here in Missouri had a dismal 0.4% when it came to Black artists, which turned out to be only 2 artists, Roy DeCarava and Lois Mailou Jones. How do you feel about the lack of diversity in major museums? And do you think it's attributed to a larger lack of diversity in the arts?
Yes.
Agreed. Yes, completely.
I mean, so obviously I'm not in the gallery art space, but in the publishing space, it's very similar, you know? And I think it's mostly because the people in power are not finding the right people, not just the right people to create work, but the right people to then find work, you know? So it's like, yes, we want to have more books with, you know, Black characters, but we also want editors who are Black because they're going to be the ones who can edit that book better. You know, we also want marketers who are Black because they're going to know how to sell that book to people. We also want, you know, Black executives. We need Black people in all of the areas of the industry for it to be truly diverse. And what's happening, it's just people want to sell it. People want to commodify it. People want to say, oh, we are doing the right thing because look at this Black person's art. But I mean, when it comes to what really matters, which is longevity, job security, lifelong changes in the industry, you have to have people at the top as well. And I think if we are continuing to hire our buddies, we're not going to see a lot of change in that area. If we continue to just look for employees in a small pool. If you're just looking on Indeed, you're only looking for people who have access to internet. If you're looking at, you know, a college like Career Day, you're only looking at people who have access to college. So it's like, if you're not taking the time as a hiring manager to make sure that every level is represented, then you're not doing the work, no matter how much work is actually shown. in that publishing packet or in the museum.
I also feel like the Nelson Museum is a little skewed. Slam has a lot of Black painters and artists that they show. Contemporary, yes, and some maybe historical, but definitely contemporary art is mostly Carrie James Marshall and more Roy DeCava and Gordon. I think I've seen some Gordon Parks in there. As far as painters go, they feature a lot of Black artists now. Now, of course, that could mean that this is just the end thing to do. Being Black is the end thing to do sometimes, and during special times of the year, it really is awesome. But I feel it's not, again, what Steenz said. I feel like if you're going to show Black artists, you have to have Black curators and Black artist writers and Black museum heads and, you know, stuff like that. And then you have to have more Black teachers at all levels, the community college level, the level where I'm at in the St. Louis Artists Guild. That's a very community and price-driven level of artists. And I'm constantly looking for Black artists to teach and to work with us, because that's what little kids see. They come to my job, at least to my organization, and they go, well, who is teaching the drawing class and how can I be like them? How can I model my success in my future life after that artist? And so it's not so much that it needs to happen in art. That's kind of like backwards. It needs to start all the way at like a kid level. It has to start when you're in your home, because when you're about to be in a museum, you've already like jumped so many hoops and gone so far into the art world that you're not really affecting the little guy anymore, or the kids, or your neighborhood, or anything like that.
I think we pretty much can all agree it's definitely not the lack of talent that's, you know, keeping Black artists out of these conversations. Art for so long, you know, even, you know, fine art in particular, has been like gatekept and just kind of reserved as like an elite sport. So I believe as we just like continue to bridge these gaps and, you know, supply Black artists with the platforms and the resources from, you know, like start to head, when we talk about, you know, infiltrating all these different areas with more Black influence, you know, the work already, you know, speaks to itself. But in addition to that, really having those keepers in the position of power to recognize, you know, those structures, like those exclusionary structures, and, you know, start to rebuild them. So, you know, definitely starting from the bottom.
Yeah, I just want to add, all y'all been saying stuff that's just on point. It's a good thing that the gallery, well, like the museum, is not the only place that you can go see art, because, you know, I've kind of dealt with that, just being an artist, how hard it was for me to kind of show my work. So I kind of took it upon myself, like, you know, I'm gonna throw my own art show and give some of my homies and other peers a platform to show their work. So, you know, sometimes you just got to fight the battle a different way. But until some of those different positions that are held by, you know, saying certain people, until it's more diverse, then it's going to be the same type of thing. So in the meantime, I feel like we could definitely, you know, take advantage of the resources that we have and, you know, create our own galleries, museums, and, you know, just continue supporting our own and putting them on a platform that they deserve.
Any other thoughts? We have about 3 more minutes on this question.
I don't necessarily have anything new to add, but I definitely agree. It is definitely a kind of trickle down effect, if you will, where the people in power at these art museums, the heads of the art museums, the curators, excuse me, are not always people of color. So their knowledge, not that they aren't knowledgeable of other artists, but their knowledge of Black artists is probably definitely skewed. And then trickling on down to, I mean, that could even, we don't necessarily have to take a lot of time to discuss it, but thinking about the art programs, how they are so different in our schools in the area, right? Just how Charlie was saying how fine art is kind of reserved for like elite people. I think that kind of is shown in how our art programs in schools in the St. Louis area are as well. So that kind of is where we definitely should be starting when we're thinking of getting more art in museums, as we've been discussing. So.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, everyone. I definitely agree. Yeah, unfortunately, the study did not mention St. Louis Art Museum, which I was disappointed. I think, in my opinion, that's a major art museum, but it did not count it. It only counted the Nelson Art Museum. But yeah, I'm not sure what the percentage would look like for SLAM if we were to analyze their data. As I believe, I think Tiff said, they will do sometimes like special exhibits, but then that art never gets absorbed into the collection. It's kind of just for that exhibit. So that's definitely a part of the problem. If it's only Black History Month and we're seeing the artists in there, kind of want to see them all the time.
Yeah. Just another thought. I mean, Kehinde Wiley did an amazing show there and an amazing artist talk. And I am so upset I missed it because now he's passed, but Andre Leon Talley did an artist talk there and did a kind of co-curated, as far as I know, the fashion that was going on throughout our culture, not just Missouri, but like throughout the nation's culture of Black culture. It was just really amazing to see. So it's a little disappointing that they don't count SLAM as a major institution, but just in that fact, you don't have to go to there's not just one museum. There's other museums and there's other galleries and there's graffiti on the walls and how people dress and the music you listen to. It's kind of everywhere. So and in a weird way, the kind of clothes that everyone wears seeps into everyone's knowledge more so than a painting would ever do. And probably quicker too.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Our next question kind of expands on that idea as well. So intersectionality is something that's a lot of times overlooked when we have these discussions about just race or just about gender, disability, or anything like that. And even in that study that I was looking at, there was no way for me to see, because they have the percentages of here's how many artists are white and here are how many are male, but there's no way to see where that kind of intersected. Do you feel like in your art and your work that you kind of bring that intersectionality to, like Tiff was saying, you photograph Black women and things of that nature? Do you feel like that's something that you have to do, or does it just come naturally to kind of include women or include Black men or include a range of age or something that is around your background?
Well, for me, it's more for me. Like, I'm trying to get to know the Black women in my life, and I'm trying to expand my friendship pool. So how I've always made friends was saying, hey, can I take your picture? And now I say, hey, can I take your picture and then give you $50 for it? And they say yes. And when and where do I have to be? And so it's very interesting. I don't think of it more as Black and a female, although that's how I think a lot of society outside of small groups would think of me, that the intersectionality is like always there. I mean, like, I guess it shouldn't be, but I mean, we're all going to be labeled by something, and it's going to have to come down to how do you feel comfortable describing yourself in your art?
Yeah, that's like recently I've, started using they, them pronouns and realizing that I am non-binary. And it's hard because people then are like, okay, well, which one of the characters in the comic is non-binary? It's like, well, none of them are because I didn't create these characters, first of all. But also, it's like, I don't know, I think people, whenever they see a label, they expect that label in all of your work, you know? And while I want to make sure people understand and know the difference between, you know, the different array of genders you can have in life, it isn't always something that I take the time to put into my work deliberately. And I think that kind of leans to what Tiff was saying. It's kind of like it's for yourself. You know, I make the work that I wish I had seen when I was younger. You know, I would have loved to. I mean, I did have Curtis, but like other than Curtis and like Boondocks, that was all of the, you know, the syndicated comic strips with Black characters. I mean, I don't know, I'm just like thinking about whenever I got my strip, and, you know, I had a great article in the Washington Post about how, you know, I am one of 3 Black nationally syndicated women. And this was obviously before I was like figuring out gender stuff. So I'm not upset about it. I don't care. But when I thought about it, it's like, once I did figure out gender stuff, I was like, well, I guess I don't have that camaraderie anymore. You know, I'm not one of the 3. Now I'm something else entirely, you know, and it feels kind of separating, even though there's still that shared experience of being visibly femme. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. It's hard to explain intersectionality when it's hard to explain it in any situation at all, you know? So it's like, it's one thing to talk about it in your art, but it's hard enough to talk about it in your life, you know? I think what's most important is people understand that the artists behind these creations live very varied lives, and we don't know all of the intersections that they have. And if we see it in their work, that's great, but we shouldn't expect it in the work.
I think intersectionality, you know, revolves a lot around just kind of, you know, personal identifiers. So you kind of run the risk of, you know, dropping that in your work and then being held, you know, responsible, you know, for being the educator, or just very carefully and thoughtfully, you know, trying to translate those things in your work. So it can be a little tricky, and I see why people may kind of avoid them, you know, in their creative works, and kind of, you know, stick in the safe space.
You know, now that I think about it, there's another thing too that like isn't always brought up, but especially in comics, an equal storyteller is the reader, you know? So like, I can put out a comic and it could say, you know, these are all the things that happened. It can say, I really did not want to get Colgate, and I would much rather if we go back to the store and buy Aquafresh. But the reader may look at it and be like, well, this bitch is entitled. You know, even though it's like very clearly a humorous comic. You also have to realize that the reader is also going to take something away from it that you may not intend for them to take away from it. And I think that they also put some of themselves into the comic too. And so like there are times when someone says, oh man, I really felt seen by this thing. And you may not have realized that thing was going to make someone else feel seen. So your work can be more intersectional than you think it is, mostly because we don't know what every viewer is thinking of it and how they relate to it as well. But also Aquafresh is better than Colgate.
I use Crest, so I can't relate, but I also wanted to kind of circle back to something that Charlie was saying about that responsibility when you put yourself into your work like intentionally. And the first thing that came to mind, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but Your Black Friend by Ben Passmore. is sort of like the opposite of that. That was just like intentionally kind of putting that out there. And I loved it when I read it. That was a really, 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 really great graphic novel. Any other thoughts for this question? Or just in general with what we've talked about so far? Okay, cool. We'll move on to the next question. So who are some Black artists of any medium that you feel need to be given more recognition or never got the recognition that they deserve?
Charlie Tatum, Brock Seals, Lauren Young, Tiff Sutton. Honestly, I like for real, like I was looking at all of your work and I'm just like, I wish I had known you guys before today. But also it's a great opportunity. Now we know each other, so it's great. I always say Jackie Orms, just because Jackie was the first, not nationally syndicated, but still first syndicated Black woman cartoonist. And I have her on my arm because I love her that much. People are always like, is she your grandma? And I'm like, I wish. Maybe I should just lie about it. But yeah, I think it's important for people to know that, you know, Black femmes have been in the comics world since the beginning, you know, in various different ways too, as cartoonists, as writers, as editors. And I think learning about Jackie is a really good place to start.
Yeah, I agree. We got a lot of local artists here that are like super talented. And just because people don't have like all the notoriety doesn't mean that their work isn't good. And I feel like a lot of the viewers may just look, well, I mean, a lot of people just look at notoriety and how famous someone is to determine if they're a good quote unquote artist or not. But yeah, man, we got so many talented people here in St. Louis that deserve so much more, you know, recognition. So I'm always rooting for the home team. Like we say, we got a lot of people in this chat or in this panel right now that are like super talented. So I'm all for St. Louis. Keep lifting up our own and all the locals because it's really hard in the art world because, you know, it can get really political and some artists just want to make art and not have to deal with, you know, promoting it or, you know what I'm saying, doing all the political stuff that comes with it. But I feel like, you know, they still deserve just as much credit because at the end of the day, it's the product that you put out and not necessarily how you portray yourself or how you put the artwork out there. I feel like you should just be able to, you know, put your artwork out there and let it be seen.
One of my answers for this is literally, I mean, crossing over to another genre, but it's literally always going to be like Little Richard. Little Richard, all the way. Like his contribution to rock and roll is literally like completely understated. Like just being able to create that one of a kind sound, like combining gospel, boogie woogie, blues, like he literally made something else and gave us like all the foundations of rock. I mean, even though he was like one of the original 10 inductees to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he didn't die until recently. I think back in 2020 or 2021, like I don't feel like he was like praised enough as the original rock star as a Black man. And I mean, yeah, the creativity, the personality, you know, the style, talent, like literally the entire package. I don't think he is, you know, praised enough for his contributions to music, period. And like I said, literally being the original rock star, it's crazy.
Little Richard is also a great one when we talk about gender expression and a lot of like black just musicians in general. Little Richard, Prince, all of those type of artists are always really great to highlight.
Right, always. He was born in 1930, you know, so it was really, you know, unheard of to have like worldly acceptance, living the lifestyle that he did, which is great.
I would say, and I'm gonna be the annoying photo person, but I would say Ming Smith is probably the not as recognized as I would think that she would be at her level. And she is still living and making art, and her work in black and white and her self-portraits. And she took pictures of like Sun Ra during a concert, and she was part of this very black male Kamoji group of artists back in the 60s and 70s, and very pioneering documentary photographer. And I think it's also, in a weird way, she's also was a model. So I feel like that intersectionality kind of dismissed her a little bit as well. It's just sometimes being as beautiful as we all are, it ends up being somehow a negative for you or something like that. And I think her work wasn't viewed as highly as it is now. I think it took a while. This is a slow burn for her work, but I'm glad I think they're starting to know her. I'm not sure.
I'm going
Hey,
to
Tiff, I'm
second
not-
or third. Oops, sorry. Go ahead,
Sorry,
Charlie.
before you go on, Tiff, I'm not familiar with her work. Can you give me her name again?
Ming Smith, I'll put it in the chat, I guess.
Thank you.
She has
Sorry.
a book by Aperture, which is a premier photo magazine, started in 1952. So she just had a recent one come out. And then I would also say Dina Lawson, but I feel like Dina Lawson has the name recognition. She's not on social media or anything like that. So it's hard to say where she's at. And then there's Renee Cox, who was also a supermodel and became a photographer. And I'm trying to figure out how to spell her name properly. And became a photographer and talks a lot about Black feminism and the sexuality that's put on Black women and Black photographers and models of all sorts. So I would really check those artists out. I really feel like Renee's name spelled wrong, but I think it's spelled correctly, actually. It might use an accent or something, but they're easily findable.
Thank you.
Oh, I put the wrong syllable. I mean, yeah, I think it's, yeah, Jewel, I think you have your spelling correctly.
Lauren, you were going to chime in earlier.
Oh, I was going to say I second and third that all of us on the call, maybe all see the recognition more and more in our future. And thanks for Steenz and Tiff for the new artists. I don't think I had heard of those names, so I made a note of those as well.
Do you all feel like it is hard to get recognition, not being like a household name or one of the, when you think of typical Black musicians, typical Black painters and things like that, there are going to be a handful of names that come up. Do you feel like it's hard to get on that level, or is there even the goal of being on that level?
For me, it's definitely the goal to be on that level. And what I recently realized is that to get on that level, you have to put yourself on that level. So I was recently on in the newspaper, our NPR's newsletter or newspaper, or however you want to call it. And the only reason why I got that way is because I pitched my story to them. So I said, NPR, hey, I'm doing a story I'm photographing Black women in the Midwest, and I have an unusual way of photographing, a unique way of photographing them. Can you check it out? And they called me back and said, yes, that's the only way I got out there. So you have to be your own hype person, your hype man. So sometimes you can go the other way around. And I think in the past, it has been, you find your way through people like gallerists, or maybe a famous musician, you know, lifts you up and helps you into the new world of artistry, or some particular person who's already big in the field might grant you that privilege as well. But I think a lot of it, at least now, since 2020, pitch your stories to magazines and newspaper outlets, because that's the only way I think you're gonna get seen, even from a little level. And then you can that's just one thing added on your CV and in your book and in your wheelhouse, to know that I've been published here, I've been published there. It gives you credibility, and it pushes our Black voices out there, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know if my goal is to be like a household name. I think my goal is to stop worrying about money. I just finished my taxes, and I'm just like, this is bullshit. Why do I owe more to my city than I do to my state? But we're not gonna get into that. I do think about, like, in order for you to get to that level though, you have to just keep making work. You know, so many people are paralyzed with fear from messing up that they don't even start, you know, and you are never going to be ready. You know, so many people put off a project because you're like, oh, I'm not good enough at shading, I'm not good enough at inking, I'm not good enough at lettering. And it's like, but you will get good at it if you keep doing it. You know, I think people tend to forget that just because we're in the arts, it doesn't mean that we are all innately born with this talent. You know, it's a skill that you have to cultivate, and you have to train yourself. You know, you're not going to get any better just by wishing that you had taken a chance on something. So I always say, if you have that idea for something, just make it now, because the only thing that's actually holding you back is you. We're in 2022. If you have access to internet, you have access to make your own webcomic for free, at your own pace, no editor, no publisher, all you. So that's enough to say that the entry level is rather low, especially when it comes to comics anyway. You just have to start making them. So yeah, reaching out to people, like saying, hey, I have this, and maybe you want to talk about it, is definitely a really good thing. But also knowing what your community is like, who's in your community, is helpful. You know, people always push like networking. I don't like to call it networking, because I want to call it community building. You call it networking and people immediately are like, oh, you just want to talk to me because you want to gain something, you know? Building a community is like, we're all on the same path here. We're all peers, and we're all trying to get to this one spot. And if we help someone else, it's because we have the ability to help someone else, not because we want something back for it, you know? So I always say, one hand forward, one hand back, bring somebody with you, but also start sooner than you think you're ready to start. It's the only way you're gonna get anywhere. And also know that being a household name is not the end all be all for everybody. So if you want to be a household name, go for it. I support you, and I'm gonna be there at all your shows. But also don't let yourself hold yourself back because you don't feel like that's what you want. You can also create just for creating sake, you know? There's a lot of cartoonists out there who are like, I'm never gonna be able to go freelance with my cartooning. I always have to have this job over, you know, my full-time job. And I'm like, that's the majority of cartoonists. I know maybe 2 cartoonists that don't have a full-time job. So educating yourself on what the landscape actually looks like, rather than what you think it looks like, is also going to be very helpful for you. You know, you have to have a house to live in, you have to have water, and you have to have food. And if you don't have those, you are not going to be able to create the works that you want to create, you know? So if that means you have to work a desk job at a hospital for 32 hours a week and you're just barely making it, then that's what you have to do, you know, because you can't create if you're not there. So definitely put your self and your health and your physical body first, your mental body first as well, and then start creating. And once you have that, that's really all it is. Because people can really see when you're passionate about something. People can see if you're doing it because you want to get those likes. And people can see it when you're doing it because you love it. You know, there's a reason I do zines about stupid little things, because it's what I love, and people can see that it's what I love, you know?
I guess just to add a tidbit, I agree with what has been said. I do think it's hard to gain recognition. I think my goal is to become a household name one day. Don't know if we want to be Picasso status, but maybe. But I think it's hard sometimes, at least for like being an abstract artist, it's hard finding your people, finding people who like value what you are actually charging for a piece of work. Not everyone's always willing to pay, and I get it, it's money, but it's like also my time and some of my, and a lot of my money, right? This is my business. So yeah, you have to be your own hype person. I think Tiff said that. Steenz, you were really saying some good things there for a minute. Like, you have to be ready to say yes, and that's really hard sometimes. For me, it's hard because this is not my full-time job in any way. I have a full-time job plus other gigs sometimes. And so sometimes I feel like my art business, it's hard to want to give that all of my time as well, but I have to, right? Because or else it'll kind of come to a standstill. So I definitely think it is hard. And in this day and age where you have to post on Instagram, right? You have to make your reel, you have to make sure your reels look cute. You're not posting for likes, but if you don't post, people don't know you exist, right? People don't know that you're creating. And that in itself is like, dear God, I just want to paint. But so yeah, all of that to say, yes, I agree. It is hard to gain recognition, but I believe it will be worth it one day. It's already proved itself worth it for where I am right now.
I also want to say your artwork is incredibly modestly priced. Like, I already have like 2 in mind that I'm gonna be buying. So like, if anyone wants to come at you about how your stuff is too expensive, you have my email address. CC me on it, and okay. I'm like, listen.
Thank you.
I'll add a little bit on that. It's definitely super hard to get recognition, but it's not impossible. One thing I learned while doing my art is it's important to have a team behind you. You know, if you can, whether you got friends or whoever, anybody in your corner is your team. You know, if people can, like Tiff was saying, you got to be your own hype man. And me, like, I'm kind of shy, so I really don't like to talk about my artwork. I kind of like to let it speak for itself almost. But I did realize that having people in my corner that just love my artwork and like speaking it up for me did bring a lot of opportunities my way. So I would just say, like in this art industry, one thing I learned also is that becoming like a big name and getting out there like that is maybe like 30% of your work and 70% like the business and how to get it out there. So it's like, while we as the artists just want to focus on the work, you know, which is the fun part, the important part, that's a big part that goes along with it. It has to be, you know, like a business mindset. Sometimes you got to put the paintbrush down and hop on the computer, get the emails, start pitching, like Tiff was saying, and Steenz as well. So, yeah, it's a toss up, but you know, it's worth it in the end if that's what you want. But you know, like it's not the end all be all. It's a million ways to be a successful artisan, you know. So it's all up to what do you see success as, you know?
That's such a great point of what is your version of success, you know? Because my version of success right now, I don't want to be thinking about money no more. I'm sorry, I'm tired. I've done too many forms, you know? So yeah, figure out what is good for you. I also really love what you say about having that team behind you. Cause like, oh my gosh, there's so many questions you're gonna come up against. Like, I don't know where I would be if I didn't have my community to help me figure out like how to start a website or, you know, man, right now I've got this dream project of putting together like a Steenz guide to being a grown-up. And I talk about how to buy a house as a freelancer. I talk about how to start your retirement fund and how to get life insurance. You know, all that stuff is really annoying to have to deal with, but it is also a part of the gig as being an artist. You have to be a business person too and really know what you're doing on that end. So having that community behind you to help you with those questions, great.
Right. While I don't have a goal necessarily to be like a household name, I do always want to be proud of whatever I have my hands in. So I like what you said about having that team and having that influence around you. Because of that, and because I have, I feel like such a really good, strong network here, and of Black artists too, I've learned to even turn down, you know, and turn away from things that don't like ethically and morally serve me, which is crazy because, man, here you are as an artist, you know, turning down paid work. But, you know, what are you sacrificing, you know, in taking on these projects with, you know, a company or a foundation or a client that doesn't really, you know, align with any of your like values and views, or, you know, are they undercutting you when it comes to your commission? It took a lot of, you know, education and having that support network, you know, kind of growing up, and I don't know if this is just culturally or what, but you get this kind of, you know, echoing in your ear of like, oh no, you know, what are you going to do with art? Like, you're going to draw, like what, you know, not really, just them not really having that, you know, kind of background to understand how much, you know, creativity influences all of these different, you know, professional careers. Pretty much everyone needs what we have in some way or another. So yeah, I think, you know, building up a good environment of people kind of, you know, guiding you into the right things is really important. Definitely really important. And, you know, once you come upon that, you know, great connection or this great opportunity, I mean, hell, I literally helped to make a whole organization based around that, but like you share it with others around you. You share it where you know, recognize that, you know, people also have this, you know, spark of creativity that they want to share. Definitely share your platform.
And I'll throw in a little shameless library plug here. But people have come to Crave Experience to print copies of their work to sell, because we have on our large format printer, we do have canvas paper. So people have bought, like printed their copies on canvas, then mounted them so they can actually sell prints that are like mounted canvas pieces. So you don't have to pay a fortune to get your work copied to be able to sell more prints. We've also had people print graphic novels and zines as well using our printers, because they can print up to 36 inches wide. So you can print really large copies by, you know, printing them for cheaper. So shameless library plug for any artists who want to.
We'll be tapping in real soon.
Well, great
Another
discussion.
great resource. I was going to say another great resource, since we were talking about the business side of art, is the VLAA. It's the Volunteer Lawyers and Accountants for the Arts. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm so glad everybody knows about them. They're amazing. But for the viewers, they are a nonprofit that helps you with taxes and contracts and copyright and intellectual property. All the business buzzwords that you have to know, they have someone who can help you with it. And it's as easy as like going online, filling out the application, and then they set you up with a lawyer or an accountant or someone to help you with what you're looking for. It's especially especially helpful because they have workshops, they have tax preparing workshops as well. And all of this is free to you because it's a volunteer effort. They also have a program called Upstart that I'm a part of, where they send out working artists to universities to talk to their art students about contracts, IP, copyright, and taxes. And that is also free. So if you have a class that you're in, or you know of, professors that are looking to expand their education, reach out to the VLAA, because they'll actually send someone to your classroom to talk to your students about that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely second that. They did a really great workshop with the library a couple years ago, giving away a lot of those resources and kind of talking about the things that they do. So yeah, super great, super nice, really helpful. Any last minute thoughts before we move on to our last question of the evening? All right, so our last question here, very open-ended, so I'm really curious what your thoughts are. And we've kind of touched on this a little bit with the previous question, but what is the goal with creating art? And is there one? And you can take this generally or for you specifically.
My goal with creating art is to definitely, oh man, did y'all lose me?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, my goal with creating art is to inspire a generation that's like up underneath me. I know that when I was growing up, I didn't like know many Black painters, male painters, female painters. And I didn't think that was something that was even possible to do for a living, to be someone creative, So growing up, I knew that I was creative. I knew I wanted to do something in that field. And if I was to have someone who maybe came to my school or somebody that I knew that was already doing that, it would have definitely influenced me to like even go harder and like be more confident moving into that realm. Because like when I stepped into the art world, it was scary because I was like, I didn't have it's no set game plan, it's no set job, and the people around me, like my mom and stuff like that, they didn't understand what it was, or like, it didn't seem practical. So I kind of had to, just make a way and, just kind of carve my own path out of it. So I want to, be there for, the little kids who look like me and you know what I'm saying, to show them that this is something that's really possible and that you can make it happen and you will thrive.
I think I'm the same exact way. And it's really all about seeing is believing, because, I was always into art. Like I was saying, I grew up watching like Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z and like all sorts of nerdy stuff. I was reading comics, reading manga. And it never occurred to me until I was working in a comic store and saw a comic by a Black woman artist that I was like, why don't I make comics for a living? Like literally went to school for art, literally had been drawing for as long as I can remember. And it never came to my mind that that's something that I could have done. And it isn't even a thing of like, oh, well, no one looks like me, so I don't know if there's a place for me. It was literally like, it never came to mind as an option. And so having that visibility is number one for me, because I want to make sure in the future someone is like, oh yeah, I could probably be a cartoonist, like I want to see a 7-year-old say, I want to be a cartoonist, and actually know that they can do it because they see people that look like them doing it, So I'm the same exact way. I also want to make sure it's easier on people next time. I feel like I like grew up as an educator. I was like 7 years old, like, let me teach you the rules of this game so you don't have to read it yourself. And like, I think that that's something that I'm always going to want to do, is educate people and let them know, here are the easy ways to make it work. Here are the ways that you need to make it work. The tips, the tricks, the tools, all that kind of stuff for everything. So that would be great.
Once I figured out that I wanted to take pictures for a living, it's been stuck in my brain to do this. I've been working down the same path for 30 odd years, 25, 28 odd years, 30 odd years. It's a dedication for me. It's always been my dream. Since I saw like Quentin Tarantino movies, and I asked in Hitchcock movies, and I worked in Blockbuster, and I figured out that there was a cinematographer, and that sounded cool. And then I couldn't afford a video camera, so my dad gave me his film camera, and ever since then it's just been like, go. So I definitely have the goal, and definitely looked into the artists that I could follow and follow into it. I went to school too, but I never finished. So there was a lot of catching up for me to do, with catching up with education, to know how to do things, and connecting with people, our community building with people in St. Louis. But it's a hard road, but it's definitely way to go. For me, at least, I've always been focused entirely on making art and making photography, creating photography.
I'd say to piggyback off of Tiff, Tiff just said, I guess I've always been interested in pursuing art as well, like painting forever as well. But in addition to that, I've always been interested in sharing my knowledge with younger students. So my background is in art education, so that is, I guess, a part of a mission in what I do. I'm hoping that there are, in addition to, like, because I paint nice, bright and colorful paintings, I am hoping, it sounds cliche, but I am hoping that I am, after a person has purchased a piece or they see my work, I am hoping that they feel like a little brighter. They've maybe, had some positive thoughts after seeing my piece. That sounds so cliche, but it is, I am hoping that that happens. And then, yeah, in return, when I do teach, my schedule allows that, I do hope that I'm able to kind of share what I know with students. So that's part of why I create.
Any other thoughts about creating art or having a goal?
Let's see. I think like the goal in creating art is like to evoke like blank, So whether that be like a feeling or like a verb, that's kind of subjective. But personally for me, I want to inspire those who still like hold their creative spark, even after kind of being discouraged from art as a pathway. You never lose it. And it's always waiting to, resurface in some way with some new inspiration. So I would definitely say just kind of keep pursuing your creative passions, as an outlet, if anything else. It doesn't always have to be something you monetize, but as long as it's something that, makes you feel good, continue to do it, never stop.
I do think there's something to be said about speaking things into existence. So even if you feel that your goal may be cliche or typical, if that's your goal, be open with it. Because, someone may hear you speak about your goals, and if you had never said anything, then they might not know ways in which they can help you, in which ways they can encourage you. And there's nothing wrong with being an artist and wanting to be paid for your work and to be paid for your skills, and to inspire other people the way that you've been inspired. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be famous either. I feel like sometimes artists will kind of shy away from being like, oh, I want to be rich and famous. But you know what? If that's what you want to be, and if those are your goals, then that's entirely valid.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with wanting money. I get it. Money is great. You know how much stuff you can buy?
Everyone has to pay rent. So there's nothing wrong with not wanting to have 10 jobs just to pay rent so you can make art. Yeah, I totally get it. Any other thoughts just in general that any of our panelists wanted to talk about before we answer? Looks like we have a couple questions in our Q&A. All right, so pulling up our Q&A, and if anyone has any questions right now, if you guys want to add them to the Q&A or in the chat, please feel free to. I'm just going to enter these in order. So our first question here is for Steenz. Says, I may have missed it, but what is your biggest inspiration?
I would say Hey Arnold. It was a great show. I really loved it because of honestly the small things, like the fact that he lived in a house with a ton of different people. You know, I lived in a house we had a big family, and then also we had family that was constantly coming over all the time and getting all in our space. So it's like it felt good to see that kind of representation of that kind of living. I mean, the fact that they all took the city bus to go to school, you know, like that sort of thing is great. I also thought they were able to like talk about challenging subjects, from not knowing if, you know, you're growing up at the right rate, or knowledge about money. I mean, anything that comes to mind when you're a young person, they were able to talk about it in a way that was exciting for the viewer and also funny, you know? And that's what I want to be able to do with my work. I want people to be like, oh yeah, Heart of the City is the reason I started making comics, you know? That would be cool.
Awesome, thank you. Another question for everyone. Are you all on Instagram?
Yes.
Yes, we're all on
Yeah.
Instagram. Was that in the chat, or is there somewhere we can all type our handles? Or
Oh,
Yeah, if you just want to throw them in the chat, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. I sort of promote my work. I'm trying to be a lot better about it this year. Like, I got this. So yeah, I try and promote my work on there, but if you follow my stories, you're very likely to see me talking about my latest obsessions. Currently, it's JAG, 1995 to 2005, Judge Advocate General. Spinoff was NCIS. So yeah, if you want to hear me talk about JAG or skating, I just learned how to roller skate April of 2021. So I've been going to Skate King and skating every Sunday night. So, you know, that's really, really fun. If anyone wants to go roller skating, I'm there, Skate King, every Sunday night, $8.
Nice. Contrary to Steenz, do not follow my stories. They're completely irrelevant.
Do you guys feel like social media is like the best way for people to find your work, or would they be better looking at your websites?
I think social media is the best. I mean, honestly, the best is the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. If you want to see what's going on with the characters. Not currently, because I actually just got over a hand injury. And so they're running reruns until the 21st. But yeah, find me on Instagram, and that's where you can see most of my work. I try to do more self-work these days, but because of Heart of the City, it is a daily comic, so it's like the good kind of grueling. So I mean, literally that's what I've been working on during the panel, were my comic strips. So I don't often have too much time to draw the fun stuff anymore, but you know, I try.
I say social media for me too. I'm always posting on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So news and it's just the easiest way, because I built like a nice community on there, and people kind of know, okay, we can check out social media if we want to know what he's doing. Yeah, I love it.
For me, I'd say yes, definitely social media, Instagram. I post on Facebook too, but not as much. But then I do have work for sale on my website, which is laurenyoung.com. Just throwing that out there.
And I'm sure, you know, website information can kind of be, you know, held right there on Instagram too. So it's like a good hub. Social media is going to be a lot more up to date on what's going on. Gets updated a lot more often than a website does.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for sharing. So our last question here under the Q&A says to all, as a Cali girl, I know it inspires me, but since and how that culture has inspired me, but can you tell me how has your city, your culture, your Blackness, and your gender influenced and impacted your work?
I feel that's like the main reason I'm an artist. And that's like my main focal point, my main subject matter is my culture. And it's helped me understand who I am and the things that I like while creating artwork. I realized that, man, I really love my city. I really love like the small things, food I eat, people I talk to, the way that we talk, and just understanding that and putting it in artwork has been really dope because I've been able to connect, in my community and we all pride these small things that we didn't think were art, but now they are art and it's something to be proud of.
I think it's hard when you're a cartoonist because it's a very solitary job. I am here at my desk for 8 hours a day, every day, so if I'm not out skating on Sunday nights, I'm usually at my desk. And that's kind of how it's always been, whether I've been in school or college or working, it's like I've kind of always been a little isolated. So my culture is actually very much internet culture. I grew up in those chat rooms and writing that fan fiction. Like my Black cultural history is the Black cultural history of the internet, which like it's still a shared culture, just not one that you actually really see in media. I mean, like I remember growing up and being online and everybody knows there's a Black kid, Black boy who loves Dragon Ball Z, and he wears those awful polyester button-down shirts, and he constantly want to talk to you about, you see the latest Jujutsu Kaisen, you see the latest Demon Slayer. Like, we all know this person exists, yet where are they in media? So that's why I created Brent for Heart of the City. Very much that character, so that's the kind of stuff that I like to bring into my work, is the internet culture.
For me, that feels slightly harder to answer because I am an abstract artist, because I consider myself an emotional painter, right? Everything you see on the canvas is, what could be in my journal essentially. So that's hard. But it would be hard to probably say that I'm not influenced by like being in St. Louis, being female, I forget a few of the other things that were our culture, being a Black female. I'm sure that it inspires my work in some aspect, but it's like hard for me to put that into words. So yeah.
I take inspiration in knowing that, man, like Black is not a monolith. And like there are so many, facets, categories, that a lot of people try to like confine Black art in. Like they literally don't exist, like it could be, some kind of personal classification, but like it can literally be whatever you want it to be. Like your sense of expression doesn't necessarily have to fit any kind of definition. So whatever I am, making at that time, whether it's like, some kind of immersive exhibition, whether I'm, designing an event, whether that's, actually painting on canvas, whether that is, staging a photo setup, all of those things are going to be, so many different things. It's literally about self and whatever you choose to pour yourself in at that time. So knowing that I can always be adaptive and still be myself. I love that.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for sharing. We just have a few more minutes here. If any of our panelists would have any closing remarks, anything, any comments or questions they have for each other that you want to have at this time. If there are any other questions from our attendees that they want to throw in the chat or Q&A.
Lauren, do you have a studio space like for people to walk through or no?
Not yet. Hopefully one day. I've just really sectioned off a part of my apartment and deemed it my studio. So one day I'm hoping to have a space where I could be like, yes, you guys can come to my studio, but not yet, but it's coming.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I was thinking if I'm gonna buy one of her paintings, maybe I should just go get it.
Well, we could totally arrange like we could just meet in person for sure.
Perfect.
I have to pay for shipping. Yes.
Perfect. And then I did have a question for Tiff as well. So I see that all the kinds of photography that you're doing, I was on your website and I love your portraiture. Do you do people commission you for like author headshots and stuff like that, or just photos they like to have of themselves? Do you do that?
Yeah, all the time. In fact, I just got off of 2 shoots from this weekend of doing some cover, some headshots for one friend and some band and website art for the other one. So yeah, call me. I'm free.
Excellent.
And I need you both for teaching. So
Yes. Oh yeah, that's for sure. Everyone should have my email, but
Yeah.
I will come to any class and talk to students about
right.
things.
No, you need to lead a comic books class for the summer camp this summer. So that's happening. And
Great.
Lauren, I need you to teach some adults how to do some abstract painting.
Okay, we can totally talk.
Pretty good. That's gotta happen.
I do see a question in the chat that's actually really good. I would love to answer.
Yeah.
Has the pandemic had a positive or negative impact on your art? Oh my gosh, Ripley. And have you been more or less inspired? It started off that I was less inspired because, gosh, I think I just felt like conventions were such a big part of being a cartoonist, you know, going to those Comic Cons and like seeing everybody and going to, you know, the bars afterwards to really like interact with your peers. And without that, it felt like what really is the comics industry now if we aren't going to cons to see each other, you know, because like I said before, being a cartoonist is very isolating. Most people who are cartoonists just work from home and they stay at home and the only time you see them is at a convention. So it was really hard at the very beginning because I started to question like, well, am I still a cartoonist if I'm not going to these conventions, you know? But it was interesting because as the pandemic was going, I found that I needed more personal hobbies that wasn't being monetized, you know? And so I ended up starting building Gundams, and then I started painting with gouache, and then I started doing puzzles. Like I have a puzzle subscription for the next 6 months because I love them so much. And the love for those hobbies has made me appreciate my artwork in a different way. And I don't think that I don't think I would have made the time to have those hobbies if there wasn't a pandemic. So I kind of have both positive and negative experiences.
I feel this pandemic was the best thing that ever happened to my career because it started me on something new because I had time and I was getting money to do my photography any way I wanted to do it. And I was encouraged to support other people in my life and in my area by doing my own work. So I know it sounds so weird for me to say that it's been positive for me, but you know, actually it kind of has been. I know it's been hard for a lot of people, but you know, wow, it changed my career, changed my life.
I'd say going off of that, kind of the same. I like started painting again in the pandemic. I had taken about a 2-year hiatus. I'd say I had painter's block. I'd kind of lost confidence in my work. I was no longer making time to create. And then suddenly COVID appeared and I wasn't working as much and I had all this free time. And I was like, it's time to get back to creating, to make this a real thing. So I know, yes, the pandemic has been quite awful for a lot of people, but I was grateful for that time to kind of just be at home and paint like as much as I wanted, essentially. And I mean, I launched a website that December, so, and I've been going since then. So it has been positive, thankfully.
The pandemic for me was pretty positive. Fortunately, when it happened, I started to get a lot of more commissions. I guess like people being in the house realized that they needed artwork or something to make them happy. So I started doing a lot more like commission things, which was pretty dope. And what else? I started to do a lot of more murals too. That was something that I was kind of like afraid to do. Not necessarily afraid, but I was just intimidated because I had never painted, saying large scale things like that. So starting to do murals, and like once I did that, it's like that started taking up a lot of my time. So I started doing murals on top of murals, and it was dope. I mean, I feel like it's funny because we all saying it had a positive impact on us, saying, when it was such a horrible time for, a lot of people around us. But as artists, that's one of our specialties. We can adapt and, saying different climates. And I applaud you all for doing that, and, not letting it just get the best of you, but, using it as fuel to like drift off into different things or, learn something new. So that's my take on the pandemic. We still in it.
I think it's interesting how you were saying that more people were reaching out to you for commissions. And I think that just shows that, like, one thing that we should all remember as artists is that people do look to artists in those times of need, like if someone's having a bad day, what are they going to do? They're going to watch a TV show. They're going to read a book. They're going to open up a comic book. They're going to, look through their coffee table book of portraiture. They're going to do all of those things to really change their feelings. And so I would say always remember that there is a place for art in the world, even during a time like this.
Really great questions. Thank you to our attendees who asked us some questions here. And I really want to, again, sincerely thank our panelists for joining us. You guys had a lot of really great input, and I love the camaraderie between everyone wanting to buy each other's work and reach out for teaching and all of that. That's so great. And that's one of the things that we're always kind of encouraging here at the library is community. I mean, that's what libraries are. They're right in your neighborhoods. We're all around the city, and we're always trying to find ways to connect, even when we're having to connect virtually. We want that accessibility where anyone can connect with anyone across the city or even from out of town. So thank you so much. Thank you to our attendees for joining us tonight. We have some other really great Black History Month programs that are going on this month. Our theme this year is wellness in Black communities. So we have a lot of things for mental health as well as physical health that are going to be going on this month, which is really great. And thank you for joining us. This concludes our Black History Month artist panel.
Thank you all.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.